Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you're listening to The Sounds of Film. Today we welcome acclaimed director David Saint and Debby Hirshman, the executive director of the Center at West Park, to discuss the one-night-only staged reading of The Big Chill, taking place Monday, August 31st at 7 p.m. at Guildhall in East Hampton. The reading is going to include Matthew Broderick, Marisa Tomei, Amy Brenneman, and many others. It's going to be a very special evening for a good cause. David, Debby, thank you so much for joining us on The Sounds of Film.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is perfect for The Sounds of Film because you're going to be presenting a reading of one of the most famous films of all time, The Big Chill. What inspired the Center at West Park to choose The Big Chill as this year's annual staged reading at Guildhall?
Well, speaking for myself, I know that it offered an opportunity in a reading to have a large ensemble cast with big parts for everybody. So there wasn't just like one or two leads and everybody else just very small supporting roles. Everybody has a sort of equal sized part in this rather large ensemble of like 8 or 10 people. And so that was a great opportunity. And I think thematically for me, The Big Chill was such a popular film back in the early 80s during the Reagan era. And the characters had all been out of college about 15 years, and they were settling into middle age and more success and the Reagan years, as opposed to their idealistic youth, where they were involved in social protests and many other causes in the 70s. And so their lives have changed, and they start asking questions as they reach this middle ground. And I think as I read it now, the relevance is so apt because you think 15 years ago, we were all in the throes of the era of hope and change under Obama. And now, 15 years later, we're much more concerned with success and the whole mega and the just the sense of where we're at today. And I think it's just a great screenplay. First of all, it earned 3 Academy Award nominations, for Best Picture, Best Actress, Glenn Close, and Best Screenplay. And I think it speaks as it did then. It still continues to speak very relevantly and very powerfully to people of our time.
I was wondering if maybe, Debby, you could tell us a little bit about the Center at West Park and why we are going to be putting on this production for your center, what your center is all about, and what is the connection to Guildhall.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, David, for directing this production of Big Chill and bringing your talent to the Center at West Park. The Center at West Park began in 2016 to become responsible for a landmark building that is historic in that Joseph Papp began there, God's Love We Deliver began there. It was also the first home for a gay marriage in a Presbyterian church, and civil rights was brought there. The Center at West Park began there in partnership with the clergy and members to become a not-for-profit responsible for maintaining the building and bringing it back to life. That partnership was built upon the notion that this building provides affordability, accessibility, and inclusivity and a diversity because of its 7 communal spaces, sacred spaces, and performing arts spaces under one roof that would allow us to develop a new model to help ensure that young emerging artists had rehearsal spaces, had the opportunity to perform in front of audiences that the center would be responsible for the marketing, the infrastructure costs that no young artist can be responsible for, and building a sense of responsibility for the audience to take for the future of such arts. Let's fast forward to 2023, which is how our commitment to stage readings and the extraordinary talents that you hear performing in Big Chill began. It was Mark Ruffalo and Kenny Lonergan who also walked in post-COVID into this extraordinary space at West Park Presbyterian Church and became deeply committed to saving this landmark. The way they decided that they were going to put this forth and gain visibility as well as financial support, as well as reflect their commitment to the next generation of artists, that they were going to do a play called This Is Our Youth. That staged reading had in it Mark Ruffalo, who was in the original, as well as Missy Yeager, and Matt Damon joined them for the first ever stage reading at the Center at West Park, which became then an ongoing part of the culture, so that there have been 1 to 2 of those stage readings with actors like Scarlett Johansson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Downey Jr., Aubrey Plaza, Spencer Garrett, many, many others. They were all doing this voluntarily, and they were all doing it to help ensure that this landmark, which is critical to the future of arts and culture in New York and Broadway, as well as to the heart and soul of New York in terms of what community needs and its multi-uses, cross generations, and being one of the only institutions that welcomed, when others closed, the first transgender theater group, the diverse people who participate in our Evolution Festival and Object Movement. So why Guildhall was an understanding that Guildhall also is deeply committed as a not-for-profit and creates a sense of community and residencies and programs for all different kinds of art forms and artists. And we knew that it was an opportunity to bring to another neighborhood, just like we now do programs in Brooklyn and Queens, another neighborhood, the importance of these New Yorkers helping to own the preservation of this landmark and putting forth this message that their support is what funds a new series, for example, which is called Launchpad, which is similar, a stage reading, yet these plays are being written by young writers. It is their first chance to bring before an audience and workshop their work. And that is the partnership that has been created, which began with Mark Ruffalo and Kenny Lonergan, that's being continued by David Saint and Marisa and the other Amy, and of course, a man who's been deeply committed, who grew up in this neighborhood, Matthew Broderick. And they have all brought each other. And Jumaane Williams will perform, who has stood up as the public advocate to ensure the preservation of this landmark, and who has performed in that space, which we do not reside in anymore because of the desire to have us evicted so they could proceed with trying to get a hardship to demolish that building.
Wow. So it seems like you've been doing such great work when all these very well-known names come forth and volunteer their time. It shows the importance of an institution like this.
Well, I think that, one of the things that I so admire both about the center and also about Guildhall is that they do reach out to the community. And, all these names that she mentioned just now are all, let's not forget they were all raised in New York. They're all New Yorkers.
Right.
And New York and the community that it represents, and the chance to offer the opportunity to young people, very young people. Most of these people all started going to classes and going to school, workshops and readings and other things at the center when they were kids. So it goes back to that, and I think all of these people, no matter how famous they've become as movie stars, they realize that it all began with their love of theater that was generated in them through these programs at a church like this, at a center like this, so that there wasn't the pressure of financial, all the programs that are done at the center are pay what you can. They're all pay what you can.
Wow.
So nobody is denied entry to the spaces based on your wallet, which unfortunately is the case so much now with Broadway. It's become so expensive that you wonder, well, where does it all start, and how do kids get enthused about this?
That's a really good point. For someone who's unfamiliar with what a staged reading looks like, what is it like? What can people expect?
Well, it's really, you're going to see everyone that's in the cast, and we have an incredible cast forming. In fact, we just learned today that Io Edebiri from who just played the lead in Proof and is stars in the series on TV. The bear, the star of the bear, the young star. She is also going to be in it, and you'll get to see them all sitting there at music stands with the screenplay in front of them, and they'll all they'll read it through. So basically, you're going to see what one sees in our business the first day of rehearsal, where everyone sits around a table and reads their parts and reads through the whole thing. And they give it their all, and they want to show everybody what they're going to be doing or hopefully doing, but it's the first step in the process. And so it's a great opportunity, a sort of behind the scenes insider's look of how these stars would, if the first day of a movie shoot, they all sit down and read the script and read the screenplay, and it's the same thing that happens with the play.
David, will this be the first time some of them will be reading it, or do you get to rehearse with them prior
Yeah,
to?
we get to, well, we send them the script ahead of time, and then we rehearse that day. We just have one day of rehearsal, and usually it all comes together very quickly for a reading like this.
That's amazing. And can you tell me a little bit what you do as a director in a situation like this? This is very
Well,
different than what.
as a director, really doing readings, mainly it's casting, and then arranging for the smoothness of the reading that it goes. You have to edit I mean, there's a lot of stage directions in a screenplay, especially for a movie. There'll be a lot of written dialogue that describes what's going on visually. And a lot of times in movies, like with this movie, I think most people remember the whole first 5 minutes of the film is not any dialogue. It's really watching everyone prepare to go for this funeral of their friend who has died at the beginning of the story. So, we have to edit those so it doesn't, take forever. But at the same time, it gives everyone a sense that we can all visualize in our mind's eye what's going on, what would be happening in the ultimate movie.
Here on the Sounds of Film, we must have played the Big Chill soundtrack a million times. It's classic. Are you able to incorporate any music into this production?
Yes, I mean, what we'll do is probably have music before the reading, pre-show, and after the reading, and then a couple of places within it where there, but we have to, you don't have the same technical things available to you that there are in a film itself, where you can, modulate the sound and bring up the mics and bring down the mics and all that. So, we'll give a sense of it. We'll give a sense of it. It was a very popular soundtrack,
And
as
we
you know.
will this year do the movie as well. And one of the strengths of the center is to be able to take both film and theater as well as dance and build programming so that people get then a talkback, just like we did, as David knows, with the Dog Day Afternoon and Stephen Adlai Gurgis, who's deeply committed to the center and grew up in the center, went to day camp in that landmark building, and other programs as a community adolescent, that we also try to feed each other. So like we're doing by being at Guildhall and using their space and renting their space and contributing to the wonderful work they do, that we will in fact show the film, because we have a film center. We created it since there were no other independent film centers, and to the point that David made, making sure that people can access films, both past and present, and they can afford it, and we can do family films. It creates a whole sense of community cross disciplines. And it also allows us to take on subjects like David mentioned, that the Big Chill is relevant today. September 8th, we'll be doing a Women in Sports and premiering a movie called, I've lost that. It will have both a focus and a panel about women in sports and leadership, then a film as well as a talkback. So the opportunity to build bridges between these different mediums becomes very important at the center, and ensuring that there's diverse and commitment to all parts of New York City and all people in New York City.
One of the
right, and you,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that also Guildhall is a beautiful space that is dedicated not only to theater and to many readings and many both book readings and script readings, and they have a large art gallery that is there that is part of it, including sculptures outside. And it's a beautiful place. I directed a play called Clever Little Lies, starring Marlo Thomas, about 8 or 9 years ago there, and just had a wonderful time. It's a beautiful space. If any of your audience, I'm sure, knows of it.
I love how both places incorporate all the arts. One of the things about Big Chill that I love that you alluded to earlier is that it has a lot of powerful themes of friendship, grief, nostalgia, compromise. It's about growing older. I was wondering if each of you could maybe talk about one of those themes, either in the context of the reading itself, the movie, or just in terms of the theme as it relates to things that you produce in your theaters.
Oh, well, I can go on forever about that, because one of the reasons I'm so attracted to the film is because of the crisis that these characters are going through. They're really sort of having their first, if you will, midlife crises, dealing with the loss of the idealism of their youth. And, I think so many of the people are drawn to this center for West Park because let's face it, with this great success that these people have had that have donated their time, um, they also realize that there's something to be lost in the innocence and idealism of youth. And this was our youth, as Kenny wrote in his play. But the point is, and Fisher Stevens, who is also connected to the center, we grew up together. We studied acting with Uta Hagen together as young actors. And then, the idealism that you all have as young artists at a certain point together, and then you go through this career and its ups and downs and your success. And if you're lucky enough to have success, it's important that you don't forget your roots and where you came from, and to not lose the sense of idealism with which you started, because that really defines who you are. And I think one of the things that I'm so attracted to The Big Chill about is that it's a group of friends who were all friends in college, and they all uh, went through these at various career paths afterwards. One of them went to Vietnam, and one of them, they all had their different journeys, but they come back together, and they're joined by this event of a friend who has died. At the beginning of the film, I don't want to be a spoiler, but you learn very quickly that this friend has committed suicide. And so that event brings them all back together from their various fields and their various levels of success and children. And, they've really changed in 15 years. And yet, so much of them is still the same. When they come back together, they instantly go back to those bonds that they had and that loyalty they had to one another. And I think as we get older and deal with careers and families and success, it's important to remember our roots and the people that we made those connections with when we started out.
And I think and appreciate everything that David said, because I think it's profoundly true. I think the other elements when you raised getting older and grief, what's been fascinating to me is how important the intergenerational piece of the center is, which is there are fewer and fewer places where people get to interact across their age groups and get to know each other, as well as the role it plays in people who are alone or after they lose someone. A man moved here to the Upper West Side after losing his wife of 46 years at age 71. And 2 weeks after moving here, he saw a flyer about saving this landmark building. It became his neighborhood, his community. And when he got sick, we at the center took responsibility for him. And thank God he's healthy and thriving. And the opportunity for those with life experience to be there for younger people and each other and really be a community is a very differentiating experience when you're at the center at West Park as compared to other places and other places that you may go watch performances. And one of the most moving things said by Matt Damon after the 2 nights that they performed was he looked at me and said, "You don't understand. We need to thank you." I said, "What are you thanking me for?" He said, "Most of us never imagined we would get to do this again, let alone with our friends now." So there's so many layers to getting older and what experiences you look for, whether you're a person just moving to a neighborhood or a more renowned person. And most recently, when you talk about grief, a young woman did a show in our Evolution Festival, which gets submitted by 180 different artists, called Committed. And it's a one-woman show, and it was, in fact, about the death of her brother by suicide. So there are so many subject matters that people are trying to contend with, and our ability to use the past, the present, give a personal outlet to creative, talented people who would never otherwise have their words heard. That's what makes what David's doing and what our resident producer, Madeline Paquette, she's bringing all these new works and new people. And everyone knows that they can send their friends. They don't need to be referred by a renowned artist or a renowned director. I get every email to info@center at West Park. To this day, I answer all of them because it enables us to see every person who wants to interact with us as essential to our community and essential to what New York has always been about. And that's what unites us all, whatever age, whether we're coming out of it as renown, whether we're the emerging artists, whether we're students or audience members, we all share a set of values that this building reflects. And as David said, when you forget where you came from, or you start losing history, which this building embodies, we're all lost.
Yeah, I think, as you were talking, I realized how important it is in the arts, in theater and film, and the visual arts as well, is to foster that sense of what you've discovered through the art in younger people, to give back to the community, give back to the people that are just starting. I mean, I am Arthur Lawrence, who wrote West Side Story and Gypsy and The Way We Were, and he had a huge career in both film and theater. And I'm the executor of his estate, and I also run the Lawrence Hatcher Foundation, which his money that he left all gives to theaters across the country to start what we give awards to emerging writers, not people who are just starting, and we have readers who read their scripts every year and encourage and give back, and every year when we give out that award, it's thrilling to call that writer and tell them, we're going to award your play the Lawrence Hatcher Award this year, because it can mean, I mean, it's a $50,000 check to those writers, and that can mean the difference in quitting or continuing on as a writer when you're young and trying desperately to succeed. So, it's always giving back. It's this circle, it just continues on. And you find the artists that I admire the most are the people like the Mark Ruffalo's and the Kenny Lonergans, who started this theater because they realized, this art center, because they realized not everyone has the opportunity they have. And so how can we encourage, because you never know which young artist who doesn't have the opportunity you have is going to be the next brilliant writer or next brilliant actor or director. So it's very impressive to me.
And we don't limit it to just the arts. So let's take the example of Mighty Mary, which is the film that will premiere, which is about the first women's American Cup team. And Mary will be there. And this woman who's been a two-time Olympian, who's in her 30s, who will also be there, who will discuss the challenge that a two-time Olympian women person has, even getting ready for Los Angeles, that getting sponsorships, though she's done this, or getting agents for women, all the complex issues of our society, we at the center get to have those conversations about women and leadership. Yes, it's in the context of this amazing film that's being premiered at the center. And why do they choose the center as the premiere space? It is because it enables what David just said, which is we bring together young and old. It allows people to share their experiences and meet each other, and then build those relationships outside of the center. We
And
become,
to
go ahead.
focus on the values that are important to our lives. And that's something that happens more and more and more with the commercialization of the world. And as they fight to help save this building, you realize on the other side of the equation are Manhattan realtor developers who want to tear it down and build a luxury condo tower, which is going to be a fortune for them. But what does it do to help nurture one's soul?
It's a very good point.
Ultimately, that's what we're all here for.
Well, both of you have been doing it for some time. Um, when you look at whether we're talking about the center at West Park or Guildhall, both places now have become pretty well known now for these staged readings. And I was wondering, just maybe as a last thing for the two of you to speak about, I was wondering if each of you could tell me about something magical that you saw happen in a past reading because I'm fascinated with this whole concept of just bringing together people for one day, and they don't really get a lot of prep time, and then they have to read this great piece of art. What can happen? So tell me a memory you have of something from the past where you've seen one of these, and what you're most looking forward to with this Big Chill reading.
Well, for me, I go way back to my one of my closest friends was Jonathan Larson, and I worked on Rent with him for 7 years, and we kept sending it to producers, and everybody rejected it. And finally, doing a staged reading of the piece really brought home the emotional passion and truth of the piece that was so infectious. And when people heard that reading for the first time, that's when a producer stepped forward, New York Theater Workshop, and said, we want to do it. We want to do it. And there's something about live performance that happens even in a reading, that you're there in the theater, you're seeing these actors perform this piece as it will never be done again. And there's something so thrilling about that live performance and the power of what it communicates to an audience. And just as that live reading of Rent ensured that it would get done and go on to have this incredible future, I think that, I'm looking forward to see what happens in the alchemy of this sensational cast that comes together and recreates this piece that had its power back in the 80s, but now it's 40 years later, and it's a whole new crew of artists, and what they're going to spontaneously find together in that one night could be thrilling.
So for me, one of the most extraordinary evenings was that I got a call before This Is Our Youth from a group of students at Sarah Lawrence. And they said, we're putting on This Is Our Youth. And is there any way we could come to the show? And of course, I said, absolutely. And the moving part was that after the show, you had to watch Kenny Lonergan spend time, I mean 45 minutes or longer, with these students and other actors talk with the students about the show they were going to produce. And that's what is so distinguishable. And then something that someone in the audience said at a recent stage reading, they said, when you go to theater, I don't really love theater because it becomes more about the scenery. And what I learned from being in a stage reading is it makes you think, it makes you feel in a raw sort of fashion. So those are two different experiences that I've had reflecting the power of stage readings to people, and that it bridges a chance for the next generations who's putting on some of the works that David talks about to get to interact with others who have performed it and find it so meaningful.
Well, I want to strongly recommend that anyone who's listening go out if you can find tickets to see the staged reading of The Big Chill. It's taking place on Monday, August 31st at 7 p.m. at Guildhall in East Hampton. And David, Debbie, are there any places online that each of you would like to mention where people can find out about the different things that each of you are doing in the future?
The easiest one for us is just to go to the center at West Park or email info@the center at West Park, and that'll come .org, forgive me, and that will bring them to everything that's offered so that they can also, if they're artists, they can learn about how they can apply for space to use. They can also get tickets. They can get complimentary tickets since there's never an economic barrier. And we hope that you will reach out. And if you need anything, and you're part of the world that's trying to make it a better one, we hope to hear from you.
And David?
Well, I'm here because I'm here to donate my time to the center. So I really think that that's what it should be about. It's not about me or my career. It's about what the center is accomplishing. So I would say do exactly what Debbie just mentioned.
Well, I appreciate what both of you are doing, and it's really inspiring. If I can ever be of any assistance to either of you in helping promote any of the things that are going on at the center at West Park, I'd be happy to do so. But I wish you the best of luck with this Big Chill production, and thank you so much for coming on The Sounds of Film.
We hope you're coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
I
We
hope
hope
so.
you're coming. It would be hard after such an extraordinary conversation and opportunity to not hear that you're going to come.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
We look forward to seeing you. And just to make sure everyone gets it right, in the email, it's just info@center@westpark.org.
Very good. Thank you again, David and Debbie.
Absolutely. Thank you.